Hello, and thank you for joining us for Let the Prophet Speak. The 2017 Healing the Whole Woman Conference Cruise was held aboard the Carnival Fantasy. We sailed from Mobile, Alabama to Cozumel, Mexico. Powerful women of God shared their life's journey during this cruise, and they admonished us to journey on. Cancer survivors journeyed on. Widows journeyed on. Divorcees journeyed on. People suffering from natural disasters journeyed on. People that encountered bankruptcies and foreclosures journeyed on. Individuals grieving the loss of loved ones journeyed on. Regardless of your past losses, know that God is with you on the journey. Journey on.
Testimony. Well, we have a different journey. We have this warrior, crusader, comrade in the gospel, sister. Could you tell us about your journey, Pastor Lula Williams?
Well, I'd like to start saying that when I was a child, I got into what they call lye. And if you know, lye is a harsh chemical, and it causes the flesh to just come up out of your mouth. Where as a baby, I crawled and put some in my mouth, and it just messed my mouth up. And you could see the scars to this day, you know. And in my home life, my dad was older than my mom, and a lot of times she would go out and maybe stay out or not come back home. And so there were times when...
Can I just back up a second? When you mentioned the lie, did you have a lot of bullying or persecution or ridicule from other kids because of the disfiguration?
I did. When I was in school, kids used to always say, "What happened to your mouth? What happened to your mouth?" And, you know, it just made me feel so inferior and made me feel so ugly because I constantly heard that. And even the kids would put things out. They said, "She had false teeth," which I didn't, you know. But they would say my teeth were nice and straight, and I wore braces at one time. But they would come up and say, "Do you have false teeth?" And I would say, "No." But, you know, there was just that inferior feeling that I had because so many people would say, "What happened to your mouth?" So it made me feel like it didn't look quite right. And, of course, I would mask how I feel by trying to dress really nice and put on makeup to help me feel better about myself. Because even in my childhood, my aunt, after the death of my mom, my aunt, she was a real strict parent, and she was really hard on me, and she didn't like me because I looked like my mom, and she blamed my mother for her brother having to go to prison. And so she would fuss at me, and she would tell me things like, "You're never going to be nothing. You're no good." She would shake me and say, "You're just like your mom." And, you know, when she would be telling me those things, in my heart, apparently there was a warrior there because I would be talking back to her. And when she said, "You're not going to be anything," I would be saying, "I am going to be something." And I was refuting what she would say. And my face must have been telling the story because she would say, "You better not say nothing. You better not." And I would say, I didn't say anything. I'm not going to say anything. But, hey, I was talking, and I was talking bad. And I think that that's a part that God allowed me to have that strongness to not let what her words were saying really grab a hold to me because it could have affected me most negatively because I was already feeling ugly. And then when you hear all this verbal talk that you're no good, you're skinny, you're not going to be anything. And then, see, my aunt was older, so we had to wear long dresses to school. You were not allowed to wear a dress above your knee. So kids would tell us we looked like grandma. And I would take mine and roll it up when I leave the house. I would roll it up, or either I would sneak something else out to put on because I didn't want to go through all that teasing. Because I was the type that I would fight if I had to. I didn't mind throwing a couple of blows.
Thanks for helping the grandkids. Let's rewind a minute.
Okay.
So what happened to your mom?
They had gotten into an argument at one point.
Your father and
my mom and dad. Now, I remember the day very well that it happened, and my mother spoiled me, so I really loved my mom. And I would try to be with her every second of the day that I could. But they had gotten in an altercation one morning, and she started to run away from him. And he took an axe and he threw it at her, and it hit her. And I don't know exactly where it hit. This is what the people told me as I grew. I just remember that they wouldn't allow us to go up the road where she was. And at that time, racism was pretty bad. So they allowed her body to lay in the road for hours before an ambulance came. And I remember being in school, so hurt, so disappointed. And I was trying to figure out, how could I be with my mom? I remember I used to sit up and think, if I run in front of this train, will I go to heaven? Because people will explain to you as a child, they'll say your mom's in heaven, and you don't really have that knowledge of what heaven is. You just want to, you just know that you want to go or you want to get there. But I was a thinker, so I would always think, well, if I get hit by a train, then I'll die, and I don't know that I'm going to go to heaven. And I would think of other things that I could do to try to get to heaven, but somehow I talked myself out of all those negative things. And even when I was in school, I was so hurt and so devastated at not having my mom. I was placed in a special education class because I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't respond to anybody. And there was a music teacher that they would send me over to be in her class. And she started loving on me and started doing the things like my mother used to do, and started allowing me to help her. She's Mrs. Harris. Miss A.D. Harris' wife was a music teacher. And when she started doing that, I started doing well. And she went to her husband, who was the principal of the school, and said, this girl has no problem. She don't need to be in this class. So then they took me out. And had I known that they were going to take me from her, I wouldn't have probably responded because I loved that affection that I was getting. You know, because that was like my mom, and she brought me out of that. But for a long time, no words would come. I wouldn't talk out of the hurt and the devastation that I felt as a child, not knowing how I could ever see my mother again. And I was unhappy for so many years. I would put my best smile on the outside, but my heart bled so many years. And it was just hard for me to really love and trust, but through getting saved, the Lord sent people into my life that was speaking to my life that helped me to loose the bitterness and to loose the things that happened. And my father did tell me one day, he said he did not intend for that to happen. He didn't mean to kill her. You know, that's an argument that went bad.
So you had to find it in your heart to forgive your father as well.
Yes, because I had purpose in my heart before I knew what happened. I said, well, whoever killed her, just when I get old enough, I'm taking them out. And that was my sole desire. I was going to kill somebody. I had every intention on doing it. And had he not apologized, I might have carried it out because I was just that hurt and angry. But when he said I didn't mean for it to happen, it was like that released me from wanting to take him out, because I did love my dad. And my dad was a hard-working man, and he was a good man.
How many of you have ever buried someone that you love? Journey on. How many of you have ever gone through heartbreak? Journey on. How many of you have ever experienced an unwanted divorce? Journey on. How many of you have ever lost a dream? What you dreamed of doing all your life? Journey on. How many of you have ever lost a home through bankruptcy, foreclosure, whatever reason? I say to you, journey on. How many of you have ever lost a job? Either you were laid off or fired. Having to reinvent yourself. Yes. Menopause made me reinvent myself. Having children made me reinvent myself. Getting married, I had to reinvent myself. When I stopped teaching and went into full-time ministry, I had to reinvent myself. So life is filled with swift transitions. It's filled with change. So we have to reinvent ourselves and journey on. Journey on.
Anything that you have lost is worthy of grief. Dr. Vernette-Rosier's newest book, Journey On, is a tool that will help you do the work necessary to grieve in a healthy manner. The book will be released December 2017, but you can pre-order today. If you pre-order today, we will immediately send you the Journey On drop card, which includes the 4-part Journey On series, plus a 2-chapter preview of the Journey On book. For your gift of $75 or more, you will receive the Journey On drop card, plus a God of My Dreams t-shirt, journal, and mug. Don't avoid pain. Do the grief work and use this book to help you do the work necessary to grieve in a healthy manner. To place your order, visit our website, vyrosierministries.org, or you can contact us via phone at 810-DREAM-08. Thank you for supporting Let the Prophet Speak and helping us reach the nations.
And when my heart broke, I felt like I couldn't feel that kind of agony and pain again, which says it had to be somebody close to you that you really trusted to be able to have that kind of impact on you. And because you really trusted them, it was meant to break you, but the Lord reached down and grabbed your hand. And had not the Lord grabbed you, I heard this song, I was right on the edge, I almost gave up. But he came and grabbed me. You were just on the edge. If a person could stand on that ledge, you were on the edge because you've been pushed through the years and you survived and you got back up. You were a runner and a leaper. But this thing had the potential to totally annihilate you. You were surprised when he kept you, but you could hear the voice I want to use the term, the voice lingering in your subconscious. You felt this still quiet voice that when you couldn't hear it audibly, it was if you just talk to me, God. If I just know you're with me, I can make it. And I felt his hand reach down and grab your hand. It's like a hand that came down through the third heaven, came down from the throne of God, reached down, and when he grabbed you, it yanked you up. And you felt that jerk that said, I'm up. When you couldn't get yourself up, you were down for the count. And literally, the demonic forces were counting. But they thought they counted you out. But God brought you through. I see November and December being pivotal times of the turnaround. It feels almost like an emotional vacuum cleaner, or vacuum cleaner that sucks that out. And when you thought I wouldn't be all right again, that I wouldn't make it, you're going to look and say, I'm surprised that God was able to turn this thing around. What was meant for my hurt, God turned it around for my good. And you're going to preach out of it. You're going to minister out of it. You're going to heal people that are dealt with, especially women that are dealt with heartbreak, betrayal, abandonment, because of the ultimate betrayal. Your ego that's been shot down. But the Lord has healed you, and he's going to bring you back up and put you in life around November, December. You'll soar again.
Yes! Yes, God! Hallelujah!
I went through it with my husband and with some people in the ministry. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
So it tells you who you are to God. Amen. I love you. Prior to that, at what point in your life that you were in and out of
You mentioned foster care.
Right.
Was your mom deceased
Right.
at the time or prior
No,
to your
she
mom?
she was alive at that time, but there were times when the marriage had trouble, you know, and they would have issues. They would take us out of the home for whatever reason. And I remember being placed in the home. She would always follow through with whatever she needed to do to get us back, because they would take all the children whenever they would take us out. And while I
Who
was,
would take the children?
the state would take us
Would
away.
remove you from the home?
Remove us from her
And put
home.
you in?
Right, in the orphanage home.
Okay.
And when I was there in the home, her nephew or her grandson, he used to beat me up all the time. And whenever he would come over, and if he would beat me, if I tell her, she would show favoritism toward him, and she wouldn't do much. So what I used to do, when he come over, I'll go and get under the bed. Sometimes I would have to stay under the bed all day. I could see him walking the floor looking for me. And I've even teased him before he passed away. I said, you remember when you used to beat me up? But I used to see his legs walking by, and he would bend down and look under the bed, but he couldn't see me because I was all the way against the wall, so he couldn't see me. But he used to beat me there a lot.
So you mentioned that you were joking with him before he passed, so you forgave him also.
Oh, yes,
Of the
I
abuse.
did.
Okay. All of these tragic things that happened to you, how did you muster the forgiveness?
Well, as I had gotten saved and I started learning the Word, I learned the importance of forgiving, because forgiveness is really for the individual. It doesn't seem fair that when somebody can do you so wrong and so dirty, you have to release them, but God commands us to do that. If you really want to be blessed and you really want your heart to be pure, because that bitterness will take a hold of you, and it'll cause hate. It'll cause you to not treat people right, and it affects your life as a whole. You can't love people the way you should, so you have to forgive.
Amen. So it wasn't just forgiving because you were preaching the gospel.
Right.
You understood that it was therapeutic for you. That it was
Right.
necessary.
Yes.
It was a gift you gave yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So fast forwarding, you were diagnosed with cancer. What type of cancer?
Yes.
How did you handle that? And how are you working through that journey?
I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer, my daughter kept telling me, Mom, you and Dad is getting older. You need to go and get your checkups. And she kept encouraging me, go get your physicals, go get your checkup. You need to have this test. You need to have that. So I made an appointment. I went and got my test. And when the doctor was examining me, she found a big lump. It was a pretty good sized lump. And
How old were you at the time that she found the lump?
it was just 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I was, like 61, 62. But when she found the lump, and she told me to go get the x-ray, well, I remember when I was walking out, I didn't scream or cry or didn't have a fit, because I so trust God. I know that He cares for me. And if it's my time, then it's my time. And I try to live a life and treat people that when I leave here, that I can go and be with Him in eternity. So I didn't panic, and I wasn't screaming and crying.
And most people pass out hearing the word cancer. Okay.
So I remember when I was walking out of the doctor's office, and I guess because I didn't show any emotion, I looked at the doctor. She had her pen in writing position, and she was like looking at me like, did she get it? Did she understand what I said? And I've never, in all the years that I've gone to doctors, I've never had a doctor to call my house. This doctor literally called me. She said, please go get those tests. Please go get checked. Then she talked to my husband and my daughter. She was begging them to please have me to make sure I get those tests, because I think she thought that she don't get it. She don't know how serious this is. But I went on, and of course I had the test and examination, and it did come back that I, had breast cancer, stage 2. And at the time I was working. But of course the cancer make you feel really tired. And when I was working so hard, and I didn't know that the tiredness may have come from cancer or not, because at that time I was teaching 5 grade levels, and I was trying to teach all of the subjects, reading and math, science, and social studies to 5 grade levels. And that's a load of work because you have to prep every day to be prepared for your students. So I didn't have any signs or anything to let me know that I was going to be diagnosed with cancer. But I started my treatment. A student that used to be here at the school where I taught ended up being my caregiver and a nurse out at MD Anderson. So that's why it's so important to be careful.
And you mentioned that it was almost a miracle for you to be able to get in that particular program.
Yes, because a few years, about 10 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and I tried to get him in at MD Anderson, but they wouldn't take us. And we had always had very good insurance, but we couldn't get in. They offered to place him on a waiting list, so I knew that that wasn't the place for him. But immediately when Karine shared with her that I was diagnosed with cancer, she noticed that I was getting the wrong process here in town. And so she said to me, please have her come out here and just for a second opinion. She don't have to come for the treatment. Well, once I went there, I loved the way they were set up. They had a team of doctors, and all of the things that they did, my husband said, this is where we need to be. And of course, we started the process, and she opened her door and made it possible for us to have a place to stay while we were there. And, the rest is history. I think next month is going to be the last time I have to go. And so far, so good.
How many of you have ever buried someone that you love? Journey on. How many of you have ever gone through heartbreak? Journey on. How many of you have ever experienced an unwanted divorce? Journey on. How many of you have ever lost a dream? What you dreamed of doing all your life? Journey on. How many of you have ever lost a home through bankruptcy, foreclosure, whatever reason? I say to you, journey on. How many of you have ever lost a job? Either you were laid off or fired. Journey on. Having to reinvent yourself. Yes. Menopause made me reinvent myself. Having children made me reinvent myself. Getting married, I had to reinvent myself. When I stopped teaching and went into full-time ministry, I had to reinvent myself. So life is filled with swift transitions. It's filled with change. So we have to reinvent ourselves and journey on. Journey on.
Anything that you have lost is worthy of grief. Dr. Vernette-Rosier's newest book, Journey On, is a tool that will help you do the work necessary to grieve in a healthy manner. The book will be released December 2017, but you can pre-order today. If you pre-order today, we will immediately send you the Journey On drop card, which includes the 4-part Journey On series, plus a 2-chapter preview of the Journey On book. For your gift of $75 or more, you will receive the Journey On drop card, plus a God of My Dreams t-shirt, journal, and mug. Don't avoid pain. Do the grief work and use this book to help you do the work necessary to grieve in a healthy manner. To place your order, visit our website, vyrosierministries.org, or you can contact us via phone at 810-DREAM-08. Thank you for supporting Let the Prophet Speak and helping us reach the nations.
Something tragic happened on last year, at your halfway point. While you're going through this treatment that no woman never wants to have to go through chemo and radiation and losing her hair and breast cancer and all of this. What happened?
My son, we were celebrating my husband's birthday, and he had been to the house that night, and he left, and he had an automobile accident on the beach. It was raining very hard that night, and he was killed, and that was very, very devastating. We were scheduled to leave that Monday morning, And the police showed up at our door at about 5 a.m. and told us what happened. And of course, we were just torn. And I just don't know how I even got through the funeral. It was like just a daze for me. We still struggling with the hurt and the loss. We still cry. Even my family and my kids are all still have their moments that we cry. But I noticed that if I grieved and cried too much, my cancer got worse. And my children were telling me, Mama, we can't lose you too, please, you got to fight. So they were saying, you got to fight, you got to fight. And finally, I mustered up enough strength to try to hang on, because he was also concerned about me. He would come and check on me. And that night after the birthday, he kissed me on the forehead and said, I'll see you later. And I was telling him to be good and behave until I get back. And little did I know that was the last time. But it was just devastating, and it still is. We still cry. Yeah. And I don't know.
It's important to do the grief work.
Yeah.
It's important to work through it so that you're not in a deep depression, so that you don't lose yourself to cancer. Yeah. It's a work. It's a process, and you'll get through it. God, we thank you so much for her journey, and we thank you for how you've been with her on the journey. We thank you, God, that as she's journeyed on, that you'll help other women to journey on. Women that have gone through horrendous situations, Lord, that they've had warfare that was unimaginable. They've had attacks on them, their physical, spiritual, and emotional life. And just as you saw her through it, that she'll be that poster child for some woman that may be watching this and think that too many things have happened to her in life and that she needs to end the journey, that she'll understand that she can journey on, because she's looking at Pastor Lula, that as you helped her, she's helping other women. And Lord, the journey hadn't ended for Melanie as well, that as she's gone through a divorce after 14 years of marriage and raising her kids and then marrying and bearing the love of her life and even battling cancer herself. Lord, I thank you that the journey has been complicated, but you've been with them on the journey. And I thank you for angels that have been released and that you're speaking in the ears of those that are listening and watching now, that you've dispatched angels to be with them on the journey. And I thank you that we're hearing the word that's echoing in our spirit as you command us to journey on. Thank you for the journey. Thank you for the journey that had been planned by you. And God, I thank you that you've held our hand and walked us through it, and that you'll walk others through it. In Jesus' name, amen.